Hello, it's me again, back to history for a little bit of more details to memorize. So, the history, as you remember from before, I told you to give me five, and the first item of the five would be the personal history, and I want you to remember that the personal history includes eight items: name, age, sex, occupation, residence, and marital status, special habits, and menstrual history if you are interviewing a lady. Now, in order to remember them, I just put these small photos as you will have to remember them by heart. So again, nobody will forget to ask the name to be familiar with the patient. We are going to talk about these items later on, and then you will note the age from the records or by asking the patient, and then you will identify the sex in front of you, not the saxophone but the sex, and then clearly you're going to ask about the occupation, which might be relevant to pathology. Where about is this patient living, where in this country or coming from overseas, whether he's married or not, and if there is any special habits, and if it's a lady, what about the menstrual history. So again, name, age, sex, occupation, residency, and marital status, and special habits, and menstrual history, all of which we are going to talk about later in details. The second item in the history will be the complaint, and the bread and butter of the surgery is lump and pain. And so when I say surgery, I'll say three main presentations: mainly the earthquake, which might be the lump or pain, and all of the other complaint, as for example vomiting, hematemesis, bleeding, PR, metastasis symptoms, any other disturbed body function that I call other disturbed body function will come as the earthquake tremor. So this means that you are lucky enough to have only two presentations to play with, and the others will be sort of secondaries, and we're going to talk about this later. Then the third item in the history, remember from the give me five, is the present history, which will come in two components to analyze the complaint. Actually, whatever you have taken from the patient is going to be analyzed. So the first component of the present history will be the analysis of the complaint, and the second component is some leading question that I'm going to actually brainstorm you later on. But at the moment, you just need to remember that the present history includes analysis of the complaint and the leading questions. And the fourth item of the history from the Give Me Five list will be the post-medical history, and this is really important, and hence I have gathered them into 7 points instead of being here and there, as to remember them. And I always tell my students, when you address something, you need to bring them together so to remember them, as if you are traveling, instead of taking every item alone, and so you'll end up by being in a mess. You need to put everything in your bag. Here, you need to ask the patient about similar conditions, about trauma, systemic diseases, endemic diseases, infectious diseases, drug history, and operative history. So when you, as you can see from the pictures, you can see here like similar, like equal conditions. The trauma of the lady on the back of the gentleman, systemic diseases which can affect them both together, and if they are elderly, this may affect the quality of life and the frailty index. And then you can look to the map, which shows the endemic diseases, the leg, which reminds you about the infectious disease, whether acute or chronic, and any drug history that you need to ask about, and any operative history, and all of which we are going to detail later. Then, ending your history, your fifth item, in which is your sum in the Give Me Five list, will be divided into hereditary diseases and familial diseases, that again we are going to speak in details later on. And this will end your history. And at the end of this session, I would like to remind you, because I want you to remember them properly with our questions. So I will ask you, what are the elements of the personal history what are the elements of the complaint? You need to give me 8 in the personal history, 3 in the complaint. What are the elements of the present history? You need to give me 2 components. What are the elements of the past history? You need to give me 7 components. And what are the elements of the family history? You need to give me 2. And so you need to stop, remind yourself